What do you have in store for us this summer?
That's a good question. Well, I don't know about the summer. I guess I should begin with what we have in store for the spring. I feel that we are in the midst of a most critical period in our nation, and the economic problem is probably the most serious problem confronting the Negro community. And I might say the most serious problem confronting poor people generally. And I don't want to be narrow about this, talking only about the black poor in our country, because I must be concerned about Puerto Ricans who are poor, Mexican Americans, American Indians, and Appalachian whites. And we are confronting a major depression in the poor community. And I think the time has come to bring to bear the power of the direct action, the nonviolent direct action movement on the basic economic conditions that we face all over the country. Nonviolence has been a tremendous force in grappling with the social problem of legal segregation and the syndrome of deprivation surrounding that system. And of course, it has been a major force in grappling with the political problem of the denial of the right to vote. But in winning victories like the Civil Rights Bill of '64 and the Voting Rights Bill of 1965 around the issue of segregation and voting rights, we discovered that these legislative strides did very little to improve the lot of the millions of Negroes in the ghettos of the North and in the nation generally. In other words, it did very little to penetrate the lower depths of Negro deprivation in communities all over.
Welcome, everyone, to a very special stream this evening. I'm joined by fellow RBN member JB and disabled rights activist Michelle. How are you doing, Michelle?
I am doing okay. Life and progressive spaces tend to, I think, wear us all down sometimes, just because there's so much change needed, and we're not yet to a place where that we agree even on how the change is to happen, or even people understand how the change is to happen. So I think that's an ongoing stressor in a lot of people's lives, and that's kind of what's in my brain right now. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And JB, sir, how are you doing today, sir?
Need I say more, CJ? I mean,
I think that sums it up. You can, but if that's all you want to say, that's enough. That sums it up.
Look, just so that everybody knows that when I speak of my experiences and the things that I have a perspective of, whether it be politically or socially or economically, I'm coming at it as a disabled, poor Black man that is as we speak, suffering. So that's where I'm coming from. And I'm sure that you, Michelle, are coming at it from a woman that is disabled and suffering too. And so I think it is deeply important when people listen to those of us who are in a burning building that we are listened to instead of saying that we are nihilistic. That's all I got to say.
I'm gonna leave it there because I'm gonna double back to that a little bit later in the conversation. Yeah. But let's say why we got to this conversation or how we got to this conversation. So I said this in the last stream, but my kids are on spring break. My two girls are on spring break. So I have a lot more time this week to do some extra content. So I doubled back and contacted all the people that I've been wanting to speak to, but it just our schedules, Michelle's one of them. So I reached out to Michelle. Hey, I want to bring you on because we haven't been able to. The matchup has been literally maybe 4 or 5 weeks. We haven't been able to match up. So reached out to her, told her, hey, I want to cover some important topics that is pressing. Those in the disability rights advocacy community. Mm-hmm. And she was kindly enough to come on. And of course, JB being the person that's disabled of our members, of course, we need to have him represented. It'll be like having a panel talking about a Black issue and it's all white people. Like, that doesn't make any sense, right? So that's why I reached out to JB to make sure he was able to come. So I think okay. All right, so we'll do that. That I'm glad I read that because I was just about to go into our normal topic. But I read that comment. So what we'll do is we're going to be talking about disability rights, but first there is something that's kind of like happening as we're speaking, literally happening as we're speaking. I believe it's still going on in the other channel. One of the persons involved is still live on their channel. So just wanted to give JB an opportunity to kind of say why he's exhausted. What kind of has transpired today on social media for you?
Yeah. So I'm going to preface this by saying that I would rather this be spoken about between us, because we're adults. I'm a grown man. Jordan Sheridan's a grown man, right? And there is room for nuance between us to have this discussion, especially about what I tweeted. And as from what I tweeted, I said that Nina Turner is going to lose. Now, was that out of something that I wanted to happen? Absolutely not. But looking at it from a Democratic Party perspective and how they feel towards centrists, and I use the word centrist in the global sense of the word, not the United States sense of the word, because according to around the world, somebody like her would be a centrist. Okay, they don't even want her to be in the party, so therefore they're fighting to the nail against her. And so I basically said that she would lose. And Jordan Sheridan quote tweeted me and said that this type of thinking is defeatist. Is it defeatist for me to point out that they are going to do the exact same thing that they did to Bernie, and they would basically make sure that she doesn't get elected? Is that defeatist? Did I state that that people shouldn't vote for her? I never said that. But I said that given the type of climate that the capitalist imperialist party, because there's both of them, what they do, that I was basically saying this from a perspective of just being on the outside of the party looking in. And of course, down the line, he said there are some who are doing this just for clicks. And I said, I'm not doing this just for clicks. And he's like, oh, but I'm not talking about you. And it's like, but you quote tweeted me. But you quote tweeted, and then you went further, and then you did a live stream and showed my tweets. So I'm kind of under the impression maybe you met me, but now you're trying to double back. I don't know. But listen, I do respect the work that Jordan Sheridan does as a reporter on the ground. I definitely do, and I appreciate the work that he does on the ground. But one thing I want people to realize is that I am literally a poor Black disabled man that is suffering right now. And people say, well, you just came into electoral politics, and you're very new to this. And you know what? As far as that's concerned, yes. But as far as my suffering, I've been doing it since I was born.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell me as a 3-year-old living here in Orlando, Florida, walking the streets while me and my mom and my 2 brothers are living in a shelter and saying that my suffering hasn't been that long. Yes, it has. And so I know what it's like. And I'm talking about a party that literally did welfare reform, did the 94 crime bill, cut, things like, whatchamacallit?
They did a lot of stuff. Glass-Steagall, they got rid of. Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Like the Clinton, the Clinton presidency was terrible.
Yeah, there's a litany of things that this party has done to disenfranchise people like me. And I observed I wasn't even looking at 2016 because I was busy doing something else in my life. But I observed in 2020, and I saw the history of 2016 when I finally started coming around to politics. And can you blame me for making this judgment, this prediction based on what I've been seeing? And to say that it's nihilistic when I just a couple of weeks ago was doing tour for the poor with Rome on the streets. And Rome can tell you I was basically almost dead by the time it was over because I had dialysis the day before. Or you can go to Meg, former RBN member, when I went to March for Medicare for All, and they literally, her and another comrade had to take me to a restaurant to sit down because I was about to pass out. I'm trying to do things on the ground and do direct action. So it's like I'm trying to basically talk the talk and walk the walk, because from some bigger channels that even retweeted Jordan Sheridan's tweet, Crystal Ball, I don't see you on the ground doing these same things. And so, and I'm not doing this to be divisive, but what I'm saying is we are tired. We're tired. Like people like me and Michelle who get disability benefits, people who make $12 an hour are more privileged than us. They're more privileged than us. And we're saying that we're tired of this incrementalism that continues to happen. And we're seeing that incrementalism is even just directing people to the Democratic Party, a party that does not give a crap about people like me and Michelle. And so for me, it's like, well, you just have the wrong type of thinking. And it's like, I do? But I'm burning. I'm in a burning building right now.
They don't understand it.
And so this is one of the reasons why I'm just like, look, and I'm not trying to say he's trying to do this, but it feels like I'm being gaslit right now and saying, well, I know you're suffering, but you just have to wait a little longer. And it's like, but the house is burning. Why are you getting out a water pistol? Get out the fire hose, dude. And it's like, okay, fine. Electoral politics, okay, let's promote third parties then. But then you guys say, well, third parties, they're not popular. But I'm like, but you have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and then you can team up with other people, and you guys can do a third party separate, just like we did here on RBN. And you can make them more popular. And then, of course, people are saying, well, the Democratic Party is working against that. But you can make them more popular and grow the numbers of people who actually can fight against that. And so it's things like, and it's like, well, who's being defeatist? Yeah. So I'm coming at it from, and I'm trying my best. I'm sad because I feel like what I said as just political analysis was being used as an example of this isn't the way you should think. And it's like, but people like me have came to this conclusion a long time ago. I'm actually late to the party.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the reasons why I'm tired, because I'm emotionally tired. I'm physically tired. Economically, I have nothing. I have nothing. Like, look, I'm probably one of the poorest people in the independent media space. I have nothing to my name. And look, 95% of what I get from disability goes just to rent.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you have people who are in this independent media space who can go to Coachella and wear a god-awful Hawaiian shirt and they can talk about just doing things incrementally because they're comfortable. I'm not comfortable. And there is a huge, deep divide economically between some people who are in this space and people like myself. And I'm just like, wait a minute. Like, I think you guys need to listen to people like us a little bit more because you're very comfortable. And I'm not comfortable. Look, and look, let's be real. Let's put everything out there because people are going to call me a grifter, right? Did I say last week live that I didn't have enough money to get to and from dialysis, and so I needed $2.50 to help me get to and from dialysis home last Friday, on Thursday during the RBN? Yes, I did. And did people help me out with mutual aid? Yes, they did. So much so that it helps me out with a month and a half of getting to and from dialysis, which I am deeply grateful. But why am I in that position in the first place? Let's ask that question. Why am I in the position in the first place? Why do I have a GoFundMe on my pinned profile in my Twitter just so that I can survive? Why do I have that?
And I'll interject just one thing, JB, is having that also puts us at risk.
Yes. And the thing is that people are looking at me and looking at RBN, calling us grifters because we're actually poor people. People like me are suffering, and it's like, oh, you're just like everybody else. It's like, no. I am not. What is the difference? I'm literally in a burning house. And so for people to sit here and to try to make it seem like I'm just being nihilistic, if me screaming and crying in a burning house is nihilistic, then damn it, I'm nihilistic as fuck. Because I am sick and tired of this. I am sick and tired of looking at a party that says all the right things, they speak all the right things, but when it comes to actually doing it, they don't do it. And look, let me tell you, I was a Nina stan back in the day. But the thing is you can talk a good game. You can talk a good game, but your actions speak louder than your words. What you're doing on the ground, even before you get elected, speaks loud to me. And so this is one of the reasons why I'm just tired, man. And I live in the hood. Ask Rome. Rome was down here with me. I'm tired, man.
Yeah, JB. Yeah.
I'm trying not to get emotional and crying right now, but this is real shit. I literally have a sibling that's homeless right now, that's sleeping on my couch. I have a sister-in-law that is taking care of 3 kids that are teenagers. One's trying to go to college. My other sister-in-law has student debt up to her eyeballs. My mother is 70 years old, man. And she's trying to get a job because we can't afford to live, man. And people want to talk about that we're grifters and that we're just nihilistic because we are talking about suffering. Like, nah, man. This is real. There's not that much difference between me and the poor people who are living on the street that we were feeding out there during Tour for the Poor. It's no different. And it's just like people just don't get it. You got people who have Patreons with hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then they sit there and they want to talk about, oh, we're just dividing the left. No, we're literally showing you what's really going on because we're suffering out here, man. And it's like you guys don't even fucking care. And that's why I'm tired, man. I've been on dialysis for 15 years. Don't tell me about suffering until you've been in my shoes. And then you know what the worst part is? There are people that are suffering way worse than I am.
Mm-hmm.
Tell them to wait. Tell them just to vote for more progressives. Tell them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry.
No, you're okay, JB. So Michelle, I mean, if you didn't hear, like he told the story. I felt like you had, you know how you can tell when somebody has something to say at certain times. So I want to give you the opportunity to say the things that you wanted to say when JB was so eloquently speaking.
Yeah, I've learned to not try to control my face anymore because it doesn't work. Because I think people can tell whether I try or not. So,
Right.
there are components in this that are important for people to start to understand. JB and I both have a full-time job that we don't get fucking paid for because we're fighting a system to ensure that we can survive. I'm fighting a system that says it's okay to not wear masks. I'm fighting a system that says, oh, our COVID rates are nothing because we're no longer tracking it, you know? But ableism is what says if you are unable to be boots on the ground doing work that is defined by an ableist construct, you are useless. You are not of value. We can use your material, but we'll dispose of it as soon as we don't need it anymore. Ableism is toxic, and it's so toxic because people don't even realize that they're setting that standard that you're only valuable if you produce in the way we're used to producing. But what you get when you start to have people like JB, people like me, that have endured poverty and hardship and bias and discrimination and hate and fucking eugenics that is going on with our current COVID policies. When you get all of those variables together, yeah, we're fighting to survive. And yeah, when you use us as a tool to disagree with us in a way that is attacking or less than ideal, you're supporting that system of ableism that is embedded in capitalism. And out of all of those things is racism is a huge component of that. And we've got to stop, because some of the best disability advocates that I've learned from, and they're actually almost all people of color, you know, in the sense that I learn real shit from people that have experienced hardship. What I learned from the disability rights movement, and I hate kind of even ascribing to it because, you know, is, oh, well, if you just write for this accommodation and you make sure you tell us 3 days in advance that you're going to come to this meeting so we can accommodate you and be ready to seat you and have a place for you, please do that. You know, I have a full-time job. I work. I have family. I have other things. So you want me to 2 days in advance to call you up and say, oh, I need this at that meeting, or I need a wheelchair slot in your planning, you know? And then I have people that say, because I do things differently, that what I do is less valuable. Take the ableism out of your brains to start with, because ableism is what says, because I'm different, because JB is different, because we're working a fucking full-time job that advances more people's lives than just ours. But that full-time job is taking care of ourselves, and every human being needs the time and the space to do that. Don't judge people for having fucking human needs. But ableism is at the heart of this, because the best disability advocate that I can think of right now is Alice Wong, and she does everything on a ventilator from her home, even going to talk with the president of the United States. Not that it's all that, because trust me,
Right,
Democrats
right.
suck,
Right,
but
right.
she has that ticket. She's valued to that extent. And that's an important piece for people to start to look at. How do we categorize and diminish the people in the room by categorizing them by the systems that cause harm? And I'll tell you, our duopoly causes a whole lot of harm because these people are controlled to such an extent by a large corporation or large corporations that once they're in that system, being a Democrat means you're going to toe the party line. You're going to
Mhm.
fulfill it because you need the fucking money, because we all need money. Because we're not given enough of it. We're given pittance,
Pennies, yeah.
Yeah. So that was my thoughts.
No, it's like, in full disclosure, you should tell people what party you're with and your official title. That way they know what perspective you're coming from.
Yeah, so I am a registered Green Party member. I'm also an elected member of my county council in Santa Clara County in California. And amazingly, I got my local Green Party, even though, yes, there's a lot of issues within structural
Yeah,
organizing it all.
absolutely.
But I got my local Green Party to adopt, and we're working at implementing a disability equity and inclusion pledge that was adopted here locally as well. And, within the county that I live in, the county adopted it too. So there's a lot of
That's
power in a
awesome.
lot of this.
That's awesome. Okay, let's bring JB back in. He had a time to sit with his thoughts. People love you. I'm gonna put the comments up. So this is what RBN is for. Like, what they saw on screen, or what they're seeing on screen, is what they need to see, because they're not seeing this, right?
Yeah.
So it's important for RBN. When we started FHL, which we're now RBN, this responsibility was not part of what we thought our plan was going to be here. We knew that these voices needed to be heard, but it feels like sometimes we're the only voice that's speaking to some of these things.
Yeah.
And there's pushback, and I don't think there should be pushback. It's like this. Let me give it a short story, and it's like a lack of understanding. And JB articulated it with this, like, they just don't get it. And my wife, her job asked her to go on a trip for a week, and it wasn't like over the weekend. During the weekend, she was like, well, I have 2 kids and a husband. I can't really do that. And her boss response was, oh, bring them along. Because her boss had no idea that bringing along, that's an extra $3,000-$5,000. She doesn't live in a world where that's even a factor. You understand? So that's her response, because I responded to my wife, oh, they're going to pay for it. And she was like, no. And I'm like, if we're able to pay for it, why would we need their permission to go with you? Like, why wouldn't they? And it's like, it was such eye-opening to me. It's like, it didn't even occur to her that $3,000 to $5,000 is a big deal for some people to make that suggestion. Like, it didn't occur. And that's the same thing that's happening with the RBN and with you, JB. Like, we're here where that's the sort of consciousness we're waking up. Like, hey, people think other than what we've been saying all this time. There's people on the left who actually has a different perspective than what we're saying here. Yeah. And it's a shock to the system. This pushback. That's why we are referenced a lot. People tag us a lot in in other people's tweets, oh, you need to talk to, RBN about this. And it's good and it's bad, but this is the responsibility I feel we have as RBN. So I say that all to say that, JB, what the emotion you showed is needed, because people don't get it. They really don't get it. And it's some people don't get it because they don't want to get it, but other people really don't get it because they've never been exposed. If you've never been exposed to it, it's not necessarily your fault, but it is your fault if you're saying, I don't even want to learn about it. Now I know this exists, and now I don't want to even learn about it. Then now it becomes your fault. So now that you kind of settled into your thoughts, did you have any other comments before we dive into another topic here?
Yeah, it's just like you said, some people just don't know about it. But now that you know about it, what are you prepared to do? That's the question. And a lot of times we talk about, going in different avenues. And I can hear a lot of people saying, well, we're for direct action. And it's like, okay, so why aren't you known for that? Why aren't you, you know what I mean? Like there's some, for instance, some that do reporting, like, Status Quo does reporting on the ground, things like that. But others will talk about, yeah, we believe in direct action, but whenever there is a direct action event, I don't see you guys there. I mean, there was just a rally, what was it, last week, that a bunch of people went to, that I think Max Blumenthal and Afeni, it was the Bank Sisters, and so many people were out there, Comrade Misty and all them. But where were the more bigger channels? Where were they? So I come from a perspective that, and part of me is like, do you know people like me? If not, then hi, nice to meet you. And, let me give you where I'm coming from, so that you could adjust your perspective, so that not only are you fighting for people who are middle class or the working class, you're also fighting for poor people as well. And you're doing things in far as them. Not that they don't care. It's that it's almost like an out of sight, out of mind type of thing.
Yeah.
And so now I'm telling you, as somebody who's literally poor, I'm within a hair's breadth above the official poverty line, that we are definitely suffering out here. And I would like for you to start to considering our perspective a little bit more deeper and take it to heart.
That's very well said. And now we're gonna go into topics now. The thing is, what we're talking about here, supporting Democrats, is actually gonna be we're probably gonna be talking about that again, just with these topics, because the topics are about things are not happening, and Democrats are part of the reason why this is not happening. So this is not like we're leaving this conversation, but we're just adding to it. And I'm gonna bring up the Times article. Is that okay to bring that with them first?
Yeah, that works.
Yeah. Okay, so let me see if I'm sharing the right screen. Let me start over here. So let's start here with this Times article, and the title here is, as COVID era restrictions end, disabled Americans want to avoid a return to normal. Can you, in a nutshell, I mean, it's a short title, if for somebody before they read the article, what is that title saying to you when you read it? Because I know, as a person who doesn't have a disability, I know how I read it. So when you read that title, Michelle, what do you hear when you read that?
I think for myself, it's a whole lot deeper. But I haven't really asked a bunch of people that question, so I can't 100% say that.
Mm-hmm.
Normal is a racist, sexist, ableist system. Um, and then, we got all these build back better things that went on, but then what did we do? We reverted to the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
So the COVID era restrictions ending is literally a point of huge importance to many people that are immunocompromised and or disabled and or marginalized by society in some way, shape, or form. And it's literally becoming a life and death situation. You've got poor disabled people that can't necessarily afford paratransit, that rely on public transit, that now they've eliminated the mask mandate, which means you ride in this tin box with less than ideal circulation and airflow, and you're putting your life at risk because most people don't want to wear a mask. And even though the masks aren't comprehensively going to solve the problem, these policies are saying disabled people go away. We're not going to support you. We're going to pretend you don't exist. And we're just going to live our lives and be how we are and make more money and do whatever. So all of it's just kind of ridiculous.
And to see, this is something that Michelle and JB, as a person who's not disabled, this is a conversation, a topic that is not at all even like part of the discussion. It's not even a thought. It's that isn't everybody's for all this stuff going away. It's that sort of perspective. It's like it's just a matter of it's going away because everything is back to normal. But it's not reflective of one of the communities you're a part of. So let's go into the article. Now, is there any key points to this article that you wanted to specifically point out, or is it something I can just take from the beginning?
I think you can take from the beginning. I think the paragraph that starts with "as states and cities roll back."
That's where I was going to start. Okay, yes, that's where I was
Yeah.
going to start. Okay, so
Yeah.
let me read this this article. Actually, let me get you the author. This is Times. Let me see if the author is listed here at the top here. Abigail Abrams. Abigail Abrams. And let's read this article here. It says, as states and cities roll back vaccination requirements and mask mandates, companies phase out flexible work policies and federal funding for pandemic response measures run out, millions of Americans who are immunocompromised or have other disabilities or chronic illnesses that make them vulnerable to COVID-19 are urging policy makers to pump the brakes. They aren't calling for more lockdowns or never-ending masking. Next step, I don't know if that's his. I think that's Naxted says rather they want government officials to make permanent some of the systemic tweaks that help make everything from employment and health insurance to housing and schooling more accessible to all Americans during the pandemic. So during the pandemic, Michelle, there were some things that made life marginally more accessible, and then those things are going away now that these things are being rolled back. Is that pretty much how they're saying?
Yeah, somewhat so. So, I mean, I think it is, and it's a little more nuanced than that too. Which, of course, that's why you have me and JB here to talk
Yeah,
about
absolutely.
the
Yeah, that's
government.
what I want you to kind
Yeah,
of walk me through this and walk all of us through this to a better understanding of what's happening here.
because we live in a capitalist society, most of us have to work. So working means you have to go to a job.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going, I actually, part of why I'm leaving my place of employment that I've absolutely loved is because it's a very, very small nonprofit. And as such, we have to balance out, how do we make money? How do we support our mission? along with how can we protect our communities. And as a disabled, immunocompromised individual, not having masks, having more people in a very small space, all of these things put me in direct jeopardy. And they put many people in direct jeopardy. What people learned through the pandemic was, oh, wow, I'm immunocompromised and everybody's wearing a mask and I didn't get the flu this year. Vaccinated or unvaccinated. People that go into doctors' offices to see their providers, now the doctors are actually unmasking in the room, which doesn't feel very safe considering they're seeing how many patients in a day? And all it takes is air particles flowing around for one of us to get COVID. And there's a reality with COVID that people are still dying. The rates are really high again without really trying too much, but the CDC's shifted the framing so they don't have to disclose how many sick people are out there and how many people are working sick because we have to survive, or how many people are driving like JB's transit to and from his medical provider, for what he receives. That transit driver is in an essential job, but he's also in a job that they need to protect the people. We shifted during the pandemic. It was this community care, look out for your fellow person. And then it shifted to, oh, okay, we're done with that now. We're going to go off and do our own thing and start living our life because we've lost too much money and our kids are struggling and, all this other things. Instead of changing what we know into a working system, we decide to stay in what we know because it's comfortable and it works for many of the people that are stuck in those positions. And most of those positions that make the high level policies are gate kept in such a way that it keeps those marginalized out of those conversations. And even if we have it, we're dismissed and diminished. Yeah, go for it.
Do the disabled have somebody on the inside that's kind of shepherding or being the lone voice that's trying to really push this? I don't mean push it when it's election time, but like where you feel they're really, even if it's a local person, it doesn't have to be a national person, but do you feel like you have somebody who you have somebody's ear, or is that very hard to get?
Locally, I do. Locally, Santa Clara County has been hella impressive just because the public health director is saying we can reduce the mandates, but please remember to take care of your fellow person, which is hugely different from, okay, everybody be who you are and just go be free.
Right.
And don't think about the fact that we still spew particles, virus particles, when we're sick into the environment. And that impacts every other person in the room. And one-sided masking, sure, yeah, if you're the infected person, it somewhat helps prevent the spread, but you still, double-sided masking and effective masks as well is hugely important. We continue to do this propaganda machine too, that tells people what they want to hear. So then it's like, oh, I can go back and I can violently look away from this trauma that's happening to these people because they don't matter in our society and they're just drains and burdens. And instead of actually saying, oh, wow, if we all work together, we'd have a better freaking society and a better place to live in and more equity and everything else if we just stopped pretending like we know everything.
This is for you, RJ and JB. I can start with JB. Do you think that the way that the disabled, do you think the way that ableism is used against the disabled you think that it could be better within a capitalist system? What I'm getting at is capitalism is all about physical production. So it's completely ableist. It's inherently ableist. So what I'm saying, do you think it's a possibility to, in a capitalist system, not to have that inherent sort of nature to spill over into how people view the disabled? I just don't see a way, if you look at everything that or there's some sort of physical measure that you've produced something. You get what I'm saying? It's just a philosophical question. What are your thoughts? What do you think about that?
Okay, so I'm gonna start off first about masks. Now, of course, I live in Florida, and I think the governor just signed that people traveling in planes, they don't have to be mandated to wear a mask on planes anymore. I am an immunocompromised person. I've been on dialysis for 15 years, and so, of course, I, you know, I have to wear a mask wherever I go, especially during this pandemic, because I'm at risk. That being said, I'm also the type of person that I'm not very in favor of mandates. However, our system that we have for disabled people, especially people who are maybe immunocompromised, is wholly inadequate and does not allow for people like us to be able to operate like we need to within society. And so because of that, they don't make it so that, like, for instance, if they made it so that I wouldn't have to go to work or go out and things like that, and just gave us, a influx, so that we can just stay home. Those of us who are disabled, so we more likely to stay home, so we wouldn't have to go out less. Okay, all right, that's fine. Because I know there's a lot of people who are able to don't want, they don't want lockdowns and things like that. Okay, fine, but what about those of us who are disabled? Can we have that option?
Right.
But it's just there's this notion that it's like, yeah, you don't produce much. Yeah, your human values is just, we just diminish your human value. So you guys just go, to the back. And while I am for everybody to have their body autonomy, don't look at me wrong, if I'm walking around with a mask on. Now, I'm pursing my words carefully because I know there are some people on both sides who are on the left, but
I could tell that's what you're doing. This is a tough, but I hate that you're put in a position like this. And if you're putting in a position like this because of capital, you're put in a position where you're pinning. This is us workers being pinned together, bent against each other. You're. I don't want the mask, but this other group needs to be protected. So you guys just kind of work it out, and whoever survives. It's that is the problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's bringing you to the point to where you want to say, well, something needs to happen because I need to be able to live. You know what I mean? So, but you don't want to run up against mandates. This is a problem of our system. Putting those two issues against each other. This is a problem of our system that does that.
Right.
Yeah, it's a systemic issue.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a systemic issue, and the thing is that I feel like the government has dropped the ball on this because they could have addressed this, and so because they didn't address it, they're basically putting it as an individualistic thing and say, okay, that it just falls all on you. And like I said, like for instance, I mean, I'd be fine with, okay, a lot of people are against paid lockdown. By paid lockdowns, I mean paying people to stay home. If a lot of people are against that, okay, that's fine. Then we won't do that. If people don't want to, if people want to end, the mask mandates, okay, that's fine too. We'll pay those of us who are disabled more money in our disability to stay home. I mean,
I
that's
don't see that should be
I
an
feel that's like a
automatic.
happy. I feel like that's a happy medium.
Yeah.
And on top
But
of that, and just one more thing, like for instance, it's like, okay, also, why aren't you giving automatic Section 8 to those of us who are disabled,
Mm-hmm.
so that we won't have to worry about spending all that money on rent?
Yep.
go
And
ahead, Michelle.
that's the crux of this, because I've seen in the chat too, people that are like, oh, masks don't work, oh, this doesn't work, oh, that doesn't work, you know, whatever. I'm not asking for mandates at all. What I'm asking for is people to care, and people to care about people that are different from them and have different needs, things that they don't necessarily understand. And the mask mandates, you're right. But, you know, if they kept me safe at home, if they facilitated me being at home, because trust me, $1,000 a month does not facilitate much of anything. And most people for that year of the pandemic got $600 extra a week, but yet disabled people did not. So they've already said we're not valuable. They don't want to spend money. We're not going to make them money. It boils back to this capitalist system, and it boils back to what impresses people that matter to different people. And most of the time that's based in money, power, prestige, authority, whatever. And even like, it's so messed up, and we don't see the ableism of what we're saying because we don't understand. Oftentimes people don't understand that it's different. You know, when having to go and get any type of a, you know, I had to buy a van during the pandemic that I couldn't afford to buy because public transit is not safe. And it's not just safe because people don't mask. It's not safe because I'm in a wheelchair, which then means I can't necessarily reach a window to open it up. I can't necessarily find an accessible bathroom to go wash my hands in. I carry 2 to 3 hand sanitizers with me at all times. I carry alcohol wipes. I carry all kinds of stuff. And today I told my in-home helper person, you know, can you start reminding me when we're in stores to use my hand sanitizer as we leave? But when you start to juggle all of these things to remember, all of these things to be mindful of, all of these things to hold on to, when we are already trying to put out huge fires with a trickle of water. Sorry to go back into the fire analogy, but you know, that we're going to move on, go back to normal, create a system that supports those people that are doing the social labor behind the scenes, because this world will be better off because of it. You give me
So
what I
what?
need, it'll be fine.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, what are some of the things, like, in a perfect, if the government was to respond and get an A grade from you in their response to the needs or to the things needed, what would that look like? Like, what are some of the things advocacy what are some of the groups, disability rights groups,
Advocacy.
advocacy, yeah, that's it. What are some of the
I know your
yeah,
pain, CJ. I feel it, man.
yeah,
And it's even harder sometimes when you struggle with the word because it makes it so it never comes out right. Yeah.
right.
CJ, I love you, man.
But what
I feel your pain.
But what are some of those groups doing? Like, I mean, what are some of the things they say would help? That's a better question. What are some of the things they say would help? Or
So,
demanding? What
and
are some of the things they're demanding?
some of this stuff goes to things like if you're going to pack a whole bunch of people like sardines into a music hall, just start by requesting people test before they come, you know, or people. And I'm not even saying, but you know, a lot of this is because we don't create the habit. I learned that in other countries, they're using CO2 monitors to test the ventilation in spaces.
Oh wow.
You know, so when you're flying on an airplane, you got your little CO2 monitor and it says, oh, something's wrong with the airflow in here because it's registering in the red zone instead of being in the 400 to 800 with a certain amount of humidity to actually make to, and it's not even about COVID's not here or COVID is here. It's about what keeps us safe, ventilation, air, water, clean water, all of these things that we need. I mean, how many of us, and I'm going into environmentalism here, buy bottles of water because it's easier, it's more convenient, it's everything else, but it destroys our planet. So, we have to balance all this stuff out. And I'm never saying to take away somebody's bodily autonomy, but we have to shift our point of reference. We need to look at how do we keep our community safe and how do we nurture and grow America in an image that we want to see versus how do we make as much money as we can and leave everybody behind, and survival of the fittest is the way to do it, and we're just all good.
Yeah, we're so
I didn't
far
answer your question.
No worries. We're so far distant from community, which is really what you're describing. We're so far removed from that as Americans. It's so foreign to us. We feel uncomfortable, like with the concept of a community, because what you're describing is a community that cares about the individual, so they as a community work together to keep everybody safe. And those that require something slightly different doesn't mean it should not be accommodated, is what I'm hearing. So go ahead.
Yeah, and it's about an intention, and we don't have that intention. It's about setting an intention that we want to keep everyone safe, that we care about other people. But capitalism and the war economy in the United States have set us up in a way that we're pitted against that other person. We're pitted against the neighbor. JB and I are often, and I'm doing the global kind of stereotypical sense here, a Black disabled person and a white disabled person are actually pitted against each other regularly.
Wow,
because the disability rights movement took the passion and importance that the Black community knew and embraces on a regular basis internally in ways that to white people may not look like it's not ableist, but it's actually not ableist. When you don't have a lot of tools to survive because poverty is real in America, white or Black, but Black, of course, has the added racism added into it that complicates it and makes it worse, But when you have these things, you just have to start to realize that together we can solve problems. Together through dialogue and communication, we can come upon an answer. A lot of disabled people are considered canaries in a coal mine. Because we've been talking about the mass disabling event that Americans are currently experiencing, where we're getting long COVID rates, that these people have a complex medical issue at this point that their body can't regulate appropriately. So the people going on to disability right now is at a much higher rate. And that struggle's real too. So we have to start thinking about the community and what our communities need. And from my interactions, like with New Zealand, people in Australia, people in some other countries, even the UK to some extent, they laugh at America's response. America's being an ostrich. We're burying our head in the sand, saying as long as we make money, we'll survive. And this is what happens every single crisis, every single catastrophe, every single everything else, and disabled people are left to die. It's time to not leave us to die. It's time to realize that we have better answers than some other people do. And those answers are not something that are in the understanding of most people. It's about listening. It's not about there's a book solution for this. It's about listening. It's about dialogue. It's about engagement. It's what RBN has been doing exceptionally well. Because like yesterday, you reaching out to me, CJ, again, to talk and to be on this panel. It's not done in many spaces. You're saying to me, hey, your voice matters. I don't hear that many other places, especially in leftist groups, because scarcity model controls that dialogue a lot of times. Sorry.
Yes, that is a great, that last point there. That is a great point. The scarcity model. Let me read this next part because it speaks. I brought this up because when I heard you speak about long COVID, I knew this next section in the article was here. So here's the article. People with disabilities or other medical conditions represent a huge segment of the country. Nearly 3% of US adults, or some 7 million people, take immunosuppressant drugs, and tens of millions more have diseases that lower immunity directly or have medical conditions that put them at a higher risk from infectious diseases. More Americans are joining their ranks every day. Studies estimate that between 10 and 30% of people who contract COVID-19 end up with long COVID, and some fraction of that population is likely to need ongoing economic and medical aid in the future. Wow. And I'll read this quote and I'll get your comments. The COVID-19 pandemic spurred the largest influx of new entrants into the disabled community in this country in modern history. Just that one part there. Is that something both of you are aware of, that COVID-19 spurred the largest influx of new entrants or people added to the disabled community in modern history? That is something that's first time I'm ever hearing that. Did you wanted to say something, JB? Is that your mic? Go ahead.
I'm not surprised.
Wow, that is amazing. Is that something you knew, Michelle?
Yeah, it's actually disabled. The disabled Twitter, especially if you look just under disability and you follow that hashtag, you end up getting a whole bunch of amazing people. We've been talking about it since the beginning of things, especially around long COVID. Is that our systems are already set up to compromise and marginalize people because we're at that, with capitalism, it's at a very stressful time. And the points of oppression are that much harder on especially lower income Americans. So with that, it's, you get people that push themselves that are doing, and they don't recover from the virus because of some, I can't remember what the term is, but the virus kind of, just compromises their system. Even Biden, though, and I guess this I thought was more mainstream knowledge, but this is the whole thing of we put blinders on with these issues.
Yeah.
Biden, during, I can't remember, I think it was the ADA anniversary, he came out and was like, and long COVID is now an official disability, recognized by the Social Security Disability Office. However, if you're not tested by a medical provider, if you don't have the documentation, you'll get told you don't have long COVID because you can't prove it. So
Yeah. What
all
does
of
that
these
do for poor
people,
people? What does that do for poor people who don't have doctors, who can't afford to go? Like it's really it's like they don't exist. Go ahead.
And just to give people a notice, there are some people who are what's called on immunosuppressive medications. And a lot of people who are on immunosuppressive medications are people who may have been recipients of organ transplants. I know this because I need an organ transplant. I need a kidney. So with that being said, you have medications that purposefully suppress your immune system so that you can continue to keep that organ so that, you won't have
Because
to.
it's a foreign organ, and your body knows that it'll start to attack it. Your immune
Exactly.
system will start to attack it. So you take these drugs to suppress
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
your immune system. That is
Yeah.
something that I
Yeah.
was not aware. See, this is the type. These are things that you would think this is not at all in like non-disabled public discussions. This is not even known to be part of that.
Hmm.
So that is something new that I just learned. Let me read another snippet, unless Michelle, you wanted to piggyback off of what JB said before I read this here.
No, go ahead and read the next
Okay,
snippet,
so
Tony.
Dismissing the Lives of People with Disabilities is the title here. Disability advocates, I can say advocates, just not the other one. So, disability advocates started raising the alarm about the potential fallout from the pandemic in early 2020. They were used to being they were used to be bearing the brunt of public health and economic downturns, and as it became clear how serious COVID-19 was, disabled people started to warn that it would have similar effects to those of polio in the early 20th century. It would permanently mark a generation. But despite the warnings from disabled advocates, public health experts, and initially from the Democratic political leaders who said they wanted to change the trajectory of the pandemic after the Biden administration, much of the country seems to have decided it is no longer concerned about the potential effects of contracting the coronavirus. Thomas, who says she's seen both racism and ableism during the pandemic, said that lack of empathy can feel like it's coming not just from other individuals, but from your government too. And this is what you spoke to earlier. It's like people like just care, like just care about what's happening or what could happen to others around you. Can you speak to that more, to to those couple of paragraphs that I read?
JB, do you want to go first, or because I wanted to find an Instagram post that kind of makes the point that
Absolutely. You go ahead and do that, and I'll bring in JB. I actually have a different question for you, JB.
Mm-hmm.
So in what is it in your area, if you're part of the disabled the disabled rights community in your area? What are some of the things, because I'm just curious to see if it's different in California versus Florida, because you're a conservative state. What are some of the things that's pressing in your state that disability rights advocates are kind of like on? Is it also the rollbacks of COVID? Because I would think that it's different, because in your state, a lot of these things have been rolled back a long time ago. So I'm curious to know how are things going differently in your state with the disabled community?
I'm ashamed to say that I'm not exactly sure. Part of the reason why is because I'm still brand new to the disability advocacy space. Because even though I've been disabled for 15 years, I haven't really dove into this. One of the things that I do know is that as far as the regard for those of us who are disabled that are going through these things, there's not much of a fight for us, especially on the state level. Um, there was an interesting thing that happened. There was gosh, I don't even know how to put it. It's almost like a stimulus thing that was done here in Orange County, Florida, by the mayor, and it was for people who are going through financial straits during COVID. So much so that that within minutes they ran out of money, and those of us who are disabled, because the state does know that we're disabled. Hell, I have Medicaid. Um, they could have uh, they could have prioritized some of us first, but they never did. And there's a lot of us that uh, there are. I mean, there are some places that follow things like ADA and whatever, but I mean, it's Florida. What can I say?
Right.
But the thing is that I think that
It's terrible.
I would have to look deeper into it, but being that we live in a state that has a large elderly population, because a lot of people are snowbirds and they come to move here to Florida,
Yeah.
It might be a little bit better than I think, but I still am new about this from the state level. One of the things that I will say though is, as far as those of us economically who are disabled, I don't really see the state doing anything to help those of us who are disabled at all, because a lot of us are struggling to make ends meet. And so I would love to see, state subsidies or something like that. Like I'll give you an example. Like my SNAP benefits, my food stamp benefits went from $16 to $24, and that was it. So as far as people like me who are disabled, I don't see that much of a fight at all. I mean, if I did, then if somebody who's in Florida knows a little bit more than I do, then great, point me towards it. But I just don't see it.
Okay, I do. I'm gonna go to Michelle now. I know you were gonna bring something up. Oh, this is what you were looking for. This is what you were looking for. So, can you talk to us about what we're seeing? I'll scroll down so you can see the top part a little bit better.
Yeah.
Describe to us what we're seeing here.
So this is an Instagram post done by Pacing Pixie, and they are, I think, in the UK. But recommend anybody follow them if you're on Instagram, just because of the framing that they put forward is amazing. And this specific one is, what I've noticed is we're reaching the point of pandemic fatigue, and I know that that's real. I mean, I myself would rather meet in person. I myself would rather not have a mask on my face. I myself really don't want to get 16 vaccinations in a year just to make sure I'm not going to die from COVID. But it's deeper than that, and this speaks to the ableism, because Pixing Pacey is bringing up that your world, oh, it's safe now. We aren't in lockdown anymore. We can go celebrate, and then, but yet our worlds as disabled people, and what she's pointing out here is viruses, health decline, or death, which COVID's been hard for me as a disabled person. I've lost functioning because I haven't been able to do as much as I used to do. Cars block my access as a wheelchair user, as a person walking too. The stupid al fresco dining programs that, the street dining things that people are doing block me and make it so I can't get to my pharmacy. There's curbs that increase your pain because the world's not made for disabled bodies. Crossing, not enough time to cross, or you can't get to the stupid light to make the turn signal turn in time, so you have to wait for another one. Harsh lighting causes migraines. I have a stupid art exhibit over across the street from where I live. That's the city hall, actually. And it's these big things of light that give me a headache as soon as I look at them, because the light's chasing itself in a tunnel. But all of these things, it's not just about COVID. COVID has exposed these other variables in ways that I'll say most disability community tends to be a little bit complicit with the system, because it's like, well, it's better than what we used to have. I'm sorry, but that goes back to the point of incrementalism, and it's time to start to look for equity for all people, especially equity for those that are currently marginalized by society. And this just expands our point of reference a little bit in that way,
That's right. Just reading a little bit of the comments here. I can't believe we've already did over an hour. It certainly doesn't feel like that, and we only got to one of the articles here.
Sorry, I'm a little long-winded.
No worries. No, it's a good conversation. It just means that we need to do more of this. Maybe we need to do like a mini summit, I don't know if we want to call it disabled rights mini summit, like a day or two where we have some people come on. That could be something we can do plan in the future. We do have 2 other summits already on the schedule, so it will be something after that. But that might be something we can link. We can do.
And
It could be something in the future. Go ahead.
what I also would say is instead of a disability rights summit, either have a disability equity summit, which can
Okay.
incorporate kind of the BIPOC community members that
Okay.
wrote the disability justice theory that is really about universal access and collective access in all things that we're doing. Whereas disability rights is if you ask for a cookie, I'll give you a cookie. It's
Right.
not
Right.
about basing it on the need in the room, but a disability justice summit, and I mean, what's good about me no longer kind of being in the job that was draining me of most of my energy, just because of it being a leftist space that we all have issues, but I mean, nothing, intention can be great, impact
Right.
is something different, and if you're not aware of both, you kind of can be a steamroller and harm people without meaning to. But that disability justice, I'll have more time is what I'm looking forward to, is actually maybe being able to finally start a podcast that I was talking about wanting to do for a while.
Yeah, we can certainly help you get started with that, because we need like a channel of disability advocates that we can go to and count on. So we're not ending here, but we're gonna be transitioning in about 10 minutes because the People's Voice hosts are gonna be coming on in a little bit to talk about their new channel. So they'll be coming on in a little bit. Just wanted to give that heads up. So let's cover a couple of questions that they have in the chat here. Being disabled is expensive because you have to pay for convenience.
Yeah.
And this is you're speaking to, like why do I have to have something extra? So for example, let's speak to this. Our RBN, we didn't have what's known as elements, wasn't able to afford it. We looked into it. You're talking thousands of dollars, which is is just you're shutting out whole populations of people because it's like a tax. It's like a tax you're paying. But this comment is absolutely on point. Being disabled is expensive because you have to pay for convenience. Can you speak to kind of that, JB? Like you're paying for everything what they call accommodation is like an extra cost or a tax or something. Can you speak to that? And then we'll go to Michelle.
Yeah. There are some of us who, for instance, there are times where being a dialysis patient is exhausting. I can barely lift my head and I get home and I need to lay down, right? But am I supposed to just, jump up and cook, food? If I want some hot food, I have to jump up and cook.
Right.
So maybe I have to order something, but that takes money. That's a lot of money that I don't have. So that's something that I have to worry about. You know what I mean? Tax as far as being able to get to and from dialysis. Like, why is it that for a paratransit service I have to pay a copay every single time just to get to a life-saving treatment, life-sustaining treatment? Like, CJ, you're literally doing dialysis right now. Did you know that?
Oh, you mean naturally I'm doing dialysis right
You
now.
are. I don't have that. I literally have to jump in a van, go to a center, and then have it done for me, right? But I have to pay to get that done. It's not subsidized. I have to pay a copay literally every other day just to do it.
Yeah, and why
So
that
it's
is
like a tax.
that is a great perspective that I never. So I'm doing dialysis now, and I'm not paying for it right now.
Yeah, you're literally being
So you're
dialyzed.
like, why why shouldn't it be put to where, yes, maybe you're getting yours done by a machine, but you should be put in a place the same as me, where I'm not paying for it and you're not paying for it. You're not paying an extra thing for it. Go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, and the other thing is, why can't the dialysis come to JB instead of JB having to go to a facility to have the dialysis?
Right.
You know, why
Right.
is our system such that it doesn't support, and it falls back into capitalism is what it falls back into, you know, but the autonomy of body choice, having the availability of being an hour late to starting your dialysis instead of, you know, because you couldn't make it someplace, and then they
Right.
literally, I know for me, when I'm late on an appointment, like, oh yeah, you're outside your window, we can't see you now, you know. And that's not about dialysis, which I know dialysis is a little different, but you still deal with all kinds of judgments baked into the system when you're seeking medical care, and anything goes wrong that's out of my control, you know, because I relied on paratransit programming for years. My van, my adapted van, that's a 2018 Pacifica van, was $60,000+. That's $60,000 that I was, you know, technically planning at the time, because my mom was still alive and she was living with me, and we were, you know, sharing a place, and we were comfortable. For one of the first times in my life, I experienced a level of financial security where I was enjoying being able to give even $5 or $10 here or there on mutual aid, you know, because that giving essential things to other people can helps my soul, you know, feel effective or useful, or, you know, whatever. I know people don't need my little pittance of money, but at the same time, it's something that goes back to the community care concept, you know. But disabled people pay this tax on everything. You know, when you're disabled and you're flying, you know, you now have to worry about your safety. You probably have to request a job accommodation because you can't fly to that conference that they want you to go to because it's not safe. And driving takes that much extra time or whatever. So all of these variables, zoom somebody into the conference. What stops us from zooming in? Oh, we don't want to do the pandemic shutdown again. You know, we don't want to go there. We're fine where we're at, and everybody needs to be together. No, I need my body safety. So please
Yeah.
accommodate me and make it more natural and more, you know, when everybody shifted to remote work, everybody in my government, anyways, local government, they were like, oh, well, we should do this always, and we should continue to do this even after the pandemic. And then boom, numbers dropped,
They went back.
and they went back, and they're refusing people the accommodation of working from home.
Just to give a perspective and answer, there are some companies that do home dialysis.
Yeah.
Now, at first, a nurse will come, but they task you with you and a family member or person who's living with you to help put you on, instead of having somebody come out to your house. So there is that, but at the same time, you have to have room for supplies, right? And you have to be able to have a space where you can dialyze regularly. Some of us don't have that. So some of us have to go to a center to get it done because we just can't do it. So just to give that provisor there, just to let you guys know that.
And then there's also another version of dialysis that's through your abdomen and not necessarily through your veins that they can do from home. Yeah, peritoneal. So I mean, I'm aware of some of these things.
Yeah.
And the point is, it's just like, but why? I mean, we spend more time on making wheelchairs that will climb steps than wheelchairs that will actually serve the people that need them.
That's a great line to end this segment with. Didn't plan that. But I want to thank JB and Michelle. We're obviously going to have to do this another time because we literally only got covered a little bit. And now that you have more time, and now we know JB is good on Tuesdays and Thursdays, Michelle, I'm just saying, if you decide to do something, you can have JB on. I'm just saying, Tuesdays and Thursdays, he can help you walk you through understanding this whole thing here. So, any last words, Michelle and JB? I'll start with Michelle, then I'll go to JB. Last words before we end this segment, and I bring on the people's voice. They're backstage. I'll bring them on in just a second.
I think that my last words is to give kudos to RBN for all the work that you guys are doing. Because through what you're doing, reaching out to many people, whether you agree with them or not, that process of dialogue and discourse is essential to getting us to a better place. But self-serving part of this too is thank you for including disabled voices and for building this platform in that intentional way of including more of the voices that need to be heard in our society. And I greatly appreciate it. And you guys are doing good work.
Absolutely. And JB?
Michelle knows that she can lean on me any single time, just like the song goes, lean on me. So I got you. Don't worry. You can DM me. I got you. But think about the people who are the most disadvantaged in this country. A country is only as good as how well the most disadvantaged is taken care of.
Right.
And knowing that we are overlooked, just try to check on them at least. Try to check on us and let us know that you care. Just even your kind words can help. So, my motto is always leave the world better than you found it. I try to do that myself. I'm not the best at it, but I do what I can. And, just continue to show love to all humans and all of humanity, no matter who they are. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Michelle, so we'll reach out to you. Wait, did you give your last words?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. So we'll be reaching out to you more often. If you start your show before we reach out to you, then reach out to us so we can see what we can help. But thank you, JB, and thank you, Michelle. I will put you backstage and bring on our next couple of groups. So we had the Populist Voice. Right. And that is where I started with the Populist Voice. That's where you see a lot of my solo videos when I'm by myself in those little snippet videos on Twitter or wherever you see them. You might see them on Instagram or TikTok. Those are from when I used to be the Populist Voice. This is before RBN, when RBN was known as FHL. But now the people who was running or doing a podcast under the Populist Voice, they have now branching off to something of their own. It's a spinoff of the Populist Voice, and it's called the People's Voice. So it's a lot of the same people you're going to see. You know them. They used to do a show on this network called Conversations with Leftists, and there was another one. Forget what the other one was, but Conversations with Leftists. And then there was another show they used to do on this network, and then they spun off and worked on Populist Voice for several months, and now they got their own platform, and I'm going to bring them on now. How is everybody doing? Let's bring on everybody here. Okay.
Oh, the party's here.
I love seeing all of you. Andrew, I haven't seen in a while. Logan, I haven't seen in a while. Comrade, I haven't seen in a while. I think Z, I've seen you a couple of times. Ludin, I've seen you a couple of times. Third Party Summit. And Amira, how are you? How is everybody doing? I'll start at the top with Ludin. How you doing, Ludin?
Doing pretty good. Got the kids running around in the background, so if anything, you might hear. But aside from that, I'm doing pretty good. How are you guys doing?
Same with me. If you hear my girls' two daughters in the background, you might hear them. And Comrade K, what's going on? What's going on, Comrade K?
Hello, everybody. I'm having a really good day today. I just finished dinner, and I'm just happy to be back. It's good to see your face again, CJ.
Absolutely, and yours too, and the beret, I must say. And below me, Andrew. What's up, brother? How you doing, Andrew?
I'm doing well. I also just had dinner as well.
Right on.
Chicken Caesar salad. Really needed it. And now I'm energized for this show
Right
tonight. So
on.
thanks for having me on and us on and all of us. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Logan, how are you doing, Logan?
Hello, I am doing remarkably well, given how weird everything is. The world's fucked up, but I'm okay. So I'm, at least grateful for that. That's about all we can hope for these days. Looking
That's
forward
really
to
all of
chatting
us
with
can say
everyone.
that. The world's fucked up, but as long as I'm doing pretty good. Amira, how are you doing, Amira?
I'm doing really well, like Logan said, considering everything that's going on, hanging in there.
Right on. And last but certainly not least, Z. What's up, Z?
Doing good. Now I'm hungry.
Oh, and I see somebody in the chat. The New Left was the other show. So it was Conversations with the Left and Leftists, and then the New Left was the other show. But all of you are back on here, back on the RBN. I think the first time since the last show. But I wanted to bring you on to talk about the populist voice and maybe show some clips. So I'm probably gonna go to your Twitter and also to the YouTube page just so we can give people a feel of your content. But can whoever wants to take this talk about what you did with the populist voice and what you're now sort of transitioning to. I don't know who want to kind of speak to that point, but whoever wants to take it.
I mean, I would be happy to just
go ahead.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks to you for putting us all together. And we on the populist voice realized that we had become a faction and we had like similar or interlocking at least ideas and visions, and we figured why not take that into a place where we could do it as like a worker collective and just all collectively own the thing and start something basically from scratch, to take kind of the start that you gave us and then use that as a launching pad to, basically mutually help each other. And it's a lot of us working individually. I've been kind of in my own little orbit these days, but still coming back and working with everyone. And a lot of people have been really holding it down and building the channel up to what we hope it will become, which is, just another place where we can discuss real things with a future-minded and heart-centered approach, just about elevating the people and getting as many of us to where we need to be mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and be, a light, essentially, in some very dark times now and to come.
Absolutely. And let me actually share your Twitter page right now as we're talking about the channel. So let's bring this up. And this is the People's Voice. And on Twitter, the actual username is People's with an S Voice, followed by PVN. That's Paul Victor Nancy. So People's Voice PVN. Follow them on Twitter. And then your pinned tweet is the conversation you had with Lee Kemp. Who was in that conversation with Lee? Anybody here was on that in that conversation?
Yeah, it was me, Mira, and Andrew.
How did that go? What did you talk about? Was this around the time when he was like censored, and or what was the conversation like?
This is the second when he came. Like a couple days after he was censored. Me, Ludin, and Logan had a interview with him, and this one he came back and we talked about censorship a little bit more. It was like a week and a half ago.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So just trying to point out some of the work. Go ahead. If I hear somebody talking. Go ahead.
Two very, very excellent conversations with Lee about the real censorship that's going on of people like Lee, who have always been kind of to me like real beacons. Like didn't get involved in a lot of the nonsense and just stuck to like keeping it real and telling people what needed to be told, and that's why he was one of the people to suffer for it, you know. So it was really great to get to speak with him about that, since, like, you know, few people know like he does what it is to actually be censored.
That is such a great point when you say that he didn't. Now that I think about it, Lee never gets involved with that stuff. The bickering back, he never. I've never seen him a part of it, and that is something that I. Now that you mention it, that is a great point. I did notice this this post today at 1 p.m. Eastern. We are premiering the new episode of A Revolutionary Reader. And Z, let's talk to us about Revolutionary Reader, your show, and then more directly this particular episode or stream.
Well, up
What is
until now,
What is Revolutionary Reader, and then what is this here?
well, Revolutionary Reader is a show on the People's Voice Network, where I like to go over a lot of anti-imperial and leftist voices, and I go over a lot of theory, moments in history. And I have actually been pretty silent until now, because I went back and I was writing a script for this particular one, and it's on the Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon, and it goes over his chapter on violence, and it revolves around violence how in colonization and imperialism, violence is used as a weapon to not only exploit natives from their resources, but it also violence that maintains the maintains the colonial situation, and that natives must use a force that is greater than the force being used upon them to stop this so-called violence. So,
Have you written any books?
No. I've thought about it, but at some point, probably.
Okay, just curious, and I do want to go to maybe one more, just so people can get a feel of what they would see. Is that that's the actual episode here?
It's like
that
under 5. It's under 5 minutes. I went the video essay route with it.
Okay, let's watch a little bit of it right here. I didn't know. It's about 4 minutes, so let's watch a little bit of it right here.
I'm Z. So I wanted to discuss Frantz Fanon again, and this time I wanted to discuss his book, The Wretched of the Earth. Now, if you didn't see the last video about Frantz Fanon and his book, Black Skin, White Masks, I think it would be great to watch that as well, just to get a better sense of who Frantz Fanon is. Other than that, you don't need to read Black Skin, White Masks to understand The Wretched of the Earth. In this video, we're going to discuss death, and more importantly, we're going to discuss violence. Violence is the central theme of The Wretched of the Earth. The violence caused by colonization and the violence that it takes to overthrow colonization. Now keep in mind, these views expressed in the book are not an endorsement of violence, though the preface by French Jewish philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre could be taken as such.
Oh, did it stop? Oh no,
And
it
as
kept
any
going.
warmongering capitalist or colonizing state will tell you, we didn't overexploit them. They are just underdeveloped. Before discussing violence, Fanon describes the colonial situation. While saying that Marxist analysis is needed to understand the situation, he says that this analysis has to expand itself on the basis of race. In the first analysis, Fanon describes the colonized world as Manichaean. Side note, Manichaeism is a 3rd century religion from Persia. Its main focus is the struggle between light and dark forces. Fanon goes on to say, looking at the immediacies of the colonial context, it is clear that what divides the world first and foremost is what species, what race one belongs to. In the colonies, the economic infrastructure is also a superstructure. There are 2 different worlds and essentially 2 different species in the colonized world. White is good and black is evil. Good versus evil. God versus Satan. Master and slave. These are dichotomies that play out in this Manichaean world. You can see these dichotomies play out in most of history of the Western world. The white Eurocentric features and cultures have always been held up, while anything else is discarded and looked down upon. The courageous and romantic stories of the conquered, captured, and colonized are lost to history. On violence is the chapter that The Wretched of the Earth is best known for. Activists and scholars have dismissed Fanon because of the way he speaks of violence. On one hand, I think they are just being sensitive, and on the other hand, it can be heavy subject matter. Violence is a cleansing force that frees the native from his inferiority complex and from his despair and inaction. It makes him fearless and restores his self-respect. Now, we have to understand that this single mass moment of violence happens within the context of systematic violence. Decolonization is the meeting of two forces opposed to each other by their very nature. Their first encounter was marked by violence in their very existence together. That is to say, the exploitation of the native by the settler was carried out on the dint of a great array of bayonets and cannons. To Fanon, the first meeting of the colonizer and colonized is marked by violence and their exploitation.
Let's go back to that there. Z, can you speak a little more to this here? It sounds like you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah. Frantz Fanon says that in this book that decolonization is always a violent process. You can see it from the way the natives act towards each other because they're and the way they act towards each other and the way they act towards any authoritative figure in the system. And one thing that he does say that this is going over is that the first meeting between the settler and the native is a violent experience, either from slavery to the genocide of the indigenous peoples of Americas, from the colonization of Africa. It's always violent, and it's always by the brute of a gun. I mean, we see capitalism here. It's violent here, but we still get to go home at the end of the day. But then overseas, where people don't have as many protections from their governments, from giant superpowers like the United States and what have you, those countries use actual force, just like you would see, from the police here. You have our military police abroad doing the same things for resources.
So this is the reason why, like this network, this group of people we're missing, is Locked and Loaded part of the new platform or no?
Locked and Leftist, yes.
Locked and Leftist. I'm sorry, Locked and Leftist.
I knew what you were talking about. Yeah,
I didn't.
But I mean, that's what it is. Locked and Loaded. That's I mean, as leftists arming yourself, like this type of stuff, and then you got Logan with being able to teach people how to grow. Like this network is really about teaching people about building a community for the future. If that, you get what I'm saying, you have somebody. I'm just talking about 3 of the shows. There's some other shows on here too, but I'm just pointing out to the audience, our audience here who's listening. You have things like teaching you how to grow your own food, even if you're living in a concrete jungle. That's something that you can get on this channel. Then you got Revolutionary Reader, who's all constantly challenging you intellectually to think about these things, to read new books, to challenge your mind. Then you have, I haven't even got to Endemic Times. Then you have Comrade K. I forgot. He's from Canada. He's bringing the international perspective, just like RBN. We have one international. We have a Brazilian with us, and then you have Locked. I was going to say Loaded again. Locked and Leftist, which is teaching people leftists about safely arming yourself, being responsible, that type of thing, protecting yourself. I mean, you couldn't put a better sort of mix together for something that's needed to build a movement. You get what I'm saying? Like you have a lot of different things. And let me go to Amira. Amira, can you talk about? I know you do. This is your own thing, separate from the People's Voice, and I'm going to bring it back to that. But what is Endemic Times? This is your personal.
Yeah, it's my personal both blog and YouTube channel, which I just recently started. I've been working on my blog since the start of the pandemic in 2020. And the focus of Endemic Times is taking a deeper look at the world around us. There's a lot of stories that aren't covered enough in mainstream media, especially like Z was talking about, when it comes to anti-imperialism and these different regions that are affected by the United States and the European nations and their aggressive tactics when it comes to war and taking over countries. There's so many voices within those areas that do not get talked about and do not get exposed. And that's been my goal with Endemic Times, to bring those stories to light and look at all of the different political, social, and cultural aspects to those stories, because behind every issue is a human. It's a person that's being affected by these policies, by this imperialism of the United States, especially. And that's been my goal with Endemic Times. And I'm working with PVN to bring some of my work onto the channel as well, so that we're making this, much more broad, and it's getting to a lot more people.
Absolutely. I'm just, going through some of your posts so that people can see. This is, one of your posts here. I heard somebody speaking. I'm not looking at the screen, so whoever is speaking, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that one of the things I really like about the current incarnation of PVN is that it is about the network, but it's also about the network propping up each of our individual work and us each growing stronger individually so that we can be stronger as a collective, and also, just kind of cross-pollinating. And, we know how censorship goes. So we can all kind of be there for each other should anything weird happen, and they can't get us all at once, right? And also the stronger, like I said earlier, the stronger we each individually are, the better it makes everyone. So rather than having it be something where we feel like we're just pouring it all into this one thing, it's like, no, it works back and forth, and we help to promote each other. And also just want to say shout out to Z for that video, because tight, just real tight. And
Thank y'all.
I'm just loving how everything is like growing so well, and everyone is really contributing so much.
This is the template here for those watching is thinking about. The template is this: you're stronger as a group, and then grow your individual platforms. So you got a group of 5, you got 6 platforms. Your 5 individuals and the joint one you have. They're not going to take down 6 platforms, and you're building redundancy by doing that. You're overlapping, bring each other on each shows. You're doing that. You're building redundancy in your audience. So if you taken down, you sprout back up. You go on a couple of your comrades show. You got a couple of thousand built back up that quickly. So this is the template moving forward in the space that we're in with all of the censorship. Diversify your platforms too. Go, stream to Rumble, stream to wherever you can, stream to Twitter, stream to Twitch, do all of that. But let's get to a video on your Endemic Time page here. I do want to play this particular video. You're talking about. You want to set the video up before I play it, or just play it?
I think it'll definitely speak for itself, and I can talk about it afterwards if you'd like.
Absolutely. Let's play.
Yemen is unfortunately another great example of our mainstream media's inability to really discuss the issues, the lives that are at stake, the real casualties that are occurring, and the atrocities that are being inflicted on innocent men, women, and children. In Yemen, there are 20.7 million people that are in need of humanitarian assistance. 16.2 million are food insecure. 47,000 people are in famine-like conditions, and 4.3 million people are internally displaced. This was from February 18th of 2022 this year. The population of Yemen is 30.5 million. The people that are in need is 20.7 million people. There are 4 million IDPs in Yemen since March of 2015. There are 16.2 million people projected to experience acute food insecurity, and 2.3 million children expected to experience wasting. Yemen.
Wow. So this is the type of reporting, this is the type of content you're gonna get out of this great group of people from the People's Voice. Make sure you go subscribe and follow Endemic Times, the People's Voice, Let's go back to the people's voice and go to the next person, and that's Comrade K. Comrade, you hail from Canada. Tell the viewers how your show and the perspective, your unique perspective you bring to the people's voice, being that you're from Canada.
Well, Canada has always been it's always been a very unique country as opposed to the United States, in the sense that everything just feels smaller. Everything feels like it matters less in Canada, because the political in Canada is always what's happening in the United States most of the time, right? And that whatever happens in the US very much influences the culture and the politics of Canada. And, you know, like most kids in Canada and the West in general, I was raised in this society, and then I grew older, and then I became an adult, and one of my good friends radicalized me and gave me a Marxist perspective to look at the world. And then through that perspective, you look around and you see that a lot of the things that you were told and taught were just straight up lies. And I'm not someone who likes being lied to. And that's kind of the basis that I started out for Red Scared in the beginning, or it was called it was called Comrades Log at one point, and then the Red Scare, and then Red Scared, and I'm finally set on Red Scared. Thank God. I'm a little ashamed that it took 3 attempts with the name change. At some point, like, it just became me talking about my perspective on certain key issues. And while I did have a lot to say, and I still do, I realized that my perspective at the end of the day, is even if it's anti-establishment, was very limited. So I changed tactics, and I started to bring more people on. And basically the point of the show, the point of bringing these people on, is to, with every episode, slowly but surely tackle and destroy the cultural and social pillars of the West, because they are built on the bodies of the people that don't have it as good as most people. So yeah, that's basically the long and short of it.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely. And who what just name some of the couple of guests you've had lately. Who are some of the people you had on? Like, what were some of the topics that you, just to give people a feel of some of the things you've talked about on your show?
Yes. So when we were on the Populist Voice, still, one of my favorite guests was Anna Stop Crying, and she is a sex worker, and she has been trying to support herself. And with the episode we filmed together, she was able to give us some insight into how people in her industry are treated, and what the misconceptions are, and how hard it is to basically be in this industry to support yourself, right? And another episode I did was with the Pale Horse, the leftist on Twitter who started No Comrade Under 1K, which I'm sure all of us are familiar with. And I interviewed him, and we talked about what we thought that the Western left needed in order to break free from the cycle of failure, so we could actually get work done. And I had Alex Sars. I'm very sorry. I can't remember how
no worries.
exactly to pronounce his name. I'm stupid.
I believe it's Alex Suarez.
Suarez? Yeah. I interviewed him, and we talked about South America and the United States, their imperialist agenda, and how they've been destroying South America and Venezuela and Bolivia. And he provided very good personal insight into all that. And on May 7th, I plan to reserve that specific show to talking about sex work again, because there was a lot that was left unsaid in that episode that I wanted to revisit. And I'll be inviting Anna, as well as another person named Zoe, to the show, so that we can continue to expand on this topic.
You should mention the Unicorn Ranch people too, because that was amazing.
Pardon me?
The Unicorn Ranch people.
Yes. Oh my God, I am so stupid. That was my favorite show. I had the the Tenacious Unicorn Ranch on the show, a group of amazing leftist, anarchist, transgender ranch. Then they exist in Colorado. They've had to defend themselves from white supremacists, and they created a safe haven for themselves and trans youth in Colorado with that ranch, and they plan to branch out and network across the United States in these times when queer youth is under attack. And as a bisexual person, seeing all the horrible things happening to queer youth in the United States, to say it breaks my heart is an understatement. And so I see these guys as heroes, especially since they are inspired by some of the more notable leftist organizations that we've seen in the West, the most successful having been the Black Panthers. And they've said in the interview that a lot of their tactics, a lot of their thinking, a lot of their organization comes from, it's inspired from groups like that. And it was an absolute privilege to have them on, and I hope to work with them more in the future.
Okay, I think I found the episode. It says Red Scare Queer Liberation Interview with Unicorn Ranch. Is that the name of it?
Yes, the Tenacious Unicorn Ranch. Yes, that's what
okay. So I just want to play a slight snippet of it since I have it up. And I will kind of fast forward to when they're on. Okay, they come on here.
Yep, there they are.
Thank you. I think that progressive or liberals will try to couch it in an us or them scenario. Whereas I don't know, like if you're aware at all, like of course this is what they're doing. Like, I mean, if you're fascists, look, like that's what they do.
Yeah.
And also, the idea that like the leaders in the movement who have been given legitimacy by this system that leads to fascism, as if they'd give us any, actual good advice, or would it actually be, beneficial or effective in responding to that threat, is ridiculous. Like, they're never going to, because they're in the wrong framework.
Because they are being coddled by the system already. Yeah.
They bought into it. They don't know, the edge cases where the poor people and the, queer people of color, what their experience is like. Like, they're never going to actually understand that.
Yeah.
I'll pause it there and allow you to kind of sum up this section. What I'm trying to do is just give everybody a snippet of, if I'm able to access everybody's content, I'll give them a snippet of it. But since this is a longer episode and I was only able to get a snippet, can you kind of fill us in on what the discussion was in this particular section here so that we can understand what they were just saying here?
Yes. So that episode was a little bit personal to me because it kind of tied in with things that I went through. I came out basically to my friends as bisexual sometime after I had been radicalized. And, I turned to the community online for support and for guidance. And I looked to our leaders for any sort of action, any sort of plan. And in this late stage crypto-fascist capitalist society we find ourselves in, our leadership is non-existent. It's all been co-opted, liberalized, and corporatized. And we have no radical leadership, no one who's leading the way, nobody offering any sort of policy to help queer youth other than hang in there, it's going to be okay, let's fight hate with love. And we're dying. And it's very heartbreaking. So I had the ranch on, and basically we discussed that, our leadership, like many other communities, our radical leadership has been destroyed, co-opted, liberalized, and what we need to do is break free from the constant cycle of relying on corrupt politicians to uphold our rights when they don't uphold the rights of even cis straight people. So why the hell should we rely on them? We should instead rely on community building, praxis, self-defense, and basically, I don't want to say queer nationalism, but it's basically going in that direction. We must radicalize and militarize if we're going to save ourselves from the fascist onslaught that the West is currently allowing to happen against queer people in the United States and Canada and Europe and everywhere else. We have to protect ourselves. And I was very thankful that I was able to have them on. And I'm thankful that there's people like them trying to lead the fight against the fascist machine that seeks to kill us. So yeah, that was basically what the episode was about, and what people can do to help them out, and how to support them and how to support others like them and take their advice, all that kind of good stuff.
Okay, and thank you for that, Comrade K. And I left I left Luden, Logan, and Andrew last because I believe you have a show together. Is that still correct, or you no longer have a show together?
So the three of us don't have a show together. Andrew and I do have a show together. I'm kind of I'm on sabbatical because I've been working on some of my own content and stuff, which I'm actually porting over to PVN. I just had an interview with Marcella from Feel the News, who everyone should follow because she's great. She's an anarchist news, basically, but like news comedian. So it's like like Jon Stewart, but if he actually had like really good politics, like wasn't just like a little bit left of liberal, you know what I mean? Like all love to Jon Stewart or whatever, but you know what I mean? Like somebody's gonna actually give you the real, but with like a humorous bent. And I had people on like Trash Robot, who is an anarchist builder and scientist, and we talked about how science and tech can basically get us to where we need to go, and how we can co-opt science and tech in order to build the systems that we need to build, because we need to have like an all-pronged strategy. So I'm just bringing a lot of the stuff that I've been working on onto PVN, and just working with everyone in so doing.
Awesome. What's the name of the show though? So when it does hit, we know what to look for. What's the name of the show? Or do you have a name?
So that's just my own show, which is the Focused on Infinity podcast. But I'm just bringing it on, presenting it on. Yeah, and also I have a lot of. I'm on TikTok all the time, and bring a lot of my TikTok content into the YouTube because now they have shorts. And I have a few series that I'm working on, obviously the garden series, but one of them is a series on deprogramming people who live in the suburbs, because the suburbs are basically it's the population power base of the country. And because of the way the suburbs were built, it is made to encourage isolation, to encourage obeisance to like all the ways that America wants us to think, also our dependence on fossil fuels. Right. And it was created to be that way. And there's all this real subtle machinery, and more people live in the suburbs than don't. It's like 175 million people live in suburbs. And so that means that's all those people that, like, when there's gas prices, something wrong with the gas prices, those people are instantly mad at whoever the media tells them to be mad at, whether or not it's their fault. When it's really just we know what's really going on. Right. But these people, all they see is the price at the pump. And they have no choice because, well, there's no public transportation in the suburbs on purpose. You know what I mean? Because they want to keep that separation. They want to. It's really insidious. And the biggest thing about the suburbs is the HOA, is these groups that are basically telling people you can't grow your own food. You have to have your house and your property look a certain way. It's a secret government underneath the government that runs these suburbs with basically an iron fist. And that's the way that most of the people in the country live under in some way or the other. So like educating people about this, and all this was created to be this way, right? It didn't happen by accident. You get your Robert Moses and your Henry Ford, and there you go. You're off to the races. And that's basically that's how our country got to be and keep things the way that it is. So there's a couple series I'm doing. Some of it is informational, some of it is like intellectual, and some of it's just like spiritual ways to look at. I'm involved in a number of different things, but some of my spiritual practice is about looking at trends in history based on things that happen, say, in astrology or in other spiritual practices, and ways we can look at what's happening now based on what happened then. So for me, it's a pretty wide angle view, and I want to just bring as much of that as possible. But I've been kind of, like I said, on sabbatical since I'm working on a book and a few other projects. But a lot of that is going to be on PVN as well, as soon as I upload it.
Right on. So yes, now I remember more clearly. You used to have a show with Andrew and Joy, and Luden has a show with Austin. Okay, so let's go to Andrew then. Andrew, so now speaking, do you still have the post mortem show you're still doing? And so talk about that. What's the show about? Who's your co-host? If you know, I don't know if it's in little different changes, but go ahead, Andrew.
So Postmortem Breakdown, that's on Mondays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. It's now been moved to Joy's show, Joy's channel. So that's something that we do on Mondays, and we talk just about leftist news that's going on sort of in a post in a time where we really don't have a leader anymore, right? What we were saying, where we kind of are leaderless and we're all trying to carve a way that makes most sense for us to all proceed, right? And so what that looks like. So that's what doing over there. As far as kind of going into People's Voice network, there's definitely in the works a show that I'm going to start doing, but I haven't gotten a consistent. I'm still trying to figure out my life, so I've been doing more impromptu streams lately.
Oh, gotcha.
And so one of them that I wanted to kind of highlight that happened recently was with Z, where we interviewed a Starbucks union organizer from a Starbucks where they just in Rochester where they unionized, and we talked to her about that whole process and what it was like.
It's awesome.
And I got to give props to Z for. I mean, I think one of the things that is great about Z is when it comes to me reaching out to people that I don't know to come on, I kind of have a little bit of an anxiety. It's kind of hard for me to do, but Z just kind of goes through and is like, hey, want to come on this show and talk about this? And Haley was like, yeah, I'm excited. Let's do it. And then we ended up talking to her for like a half hour of like what the whole process was like to unionize and what it was like and what tactics they used to try and gaslight and do essentially emotional warfare, because that's what they do. If they can't get you physically, they're going to get you emotionally as well, so that you stop it no matter how much you're being exploited and oppressed against. So it was great. And I think one of the things that I'm really passionate about to continue doing is really lifting up stories that are there that are not necessarily getting the attention that they deserve due to the mainstream media not talking about it, and due to the mainstream media not talking about it, due to it getting overlooked, right? In that same episode, me and Z were able to cover the Cold Baron blockade, which was a group of people in West Virginia. You can look it up, that went over to Joe Manchin's family's coal baron, where he gets all this money from. And they protested right there and marched, and which I think is just amazing, because these are people who are really kind of knowing where the power is and then challenging it, right? And so those are the types of things that I really love highlighting, because I think it just shows when we feel a little hopeless. It's like, no, there are people doing things. And so we need to really figure out.
There are a lot of bright spots out there.
Exactly. And so, yes, there's always those times where I think we love to vent and say how much things are terrible, and at the same time balancing up with solutions so that we don't all just crumble into darkness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's go to Luden. Now you have a show with Austin and is it with Austin and Novi or just Austin?
It's Austin.
Okay, you absolutely. Can you tell us the name of it and talk about that show that the three of you do?
Sure. The name of the show is Professional Lapses, or ProFlaps for short. It is basically our international focus show. It's supposed to basically take a closer look at what's happening abroad and compare it to what's happening here, and then find ways to like bring awareness and support to those situations.
Absolutely. And I wasn't able to find a clip. So what was one of the latest episodes you've done? Like what was the discussion?
So let's see. We had a couple of episodes. I know one of the first ones we did, because when we went on to People's Voice, we started like with episodes after the new year, so a lot of like our older stuff kind of disappeared. But I know we did a episode talking about all the ways that the Republicans and the Democrats were kind of bad. That was our Janky episode, which is kind of, it was supposed to be like a fun episode. We had one about Afghanistan and how there is discrepancies between male and female education. We had one about Yemen. No, hold on. We had a few. Give me 1 second. Let me have a look. See if I can find
Actually, I have your page up right here, so let me put it on the screen and then we can look at it. So I'm on YouTube, just looking through all of the content here, and everybody at home can see this Boston
Like if you look through
Marathon.
the playlist, I think it should be organized there.
All right, let's click that one there.
Then right there.
Professional lapses. Let's view the full list. And let's pick this one, 7 minutes. Let's see what is talked about here. What is imperialism is the title
Internationalism
of this one. Internationalism. I'm sorry. I'm not looking at the screen. I'm looking at the top here.
Welcome to Professional Lapses. I'm Austin. I'm a 21-year Army veteran. I worked on generators and computers. I've been around the world a little bit. And I'm here to figure out what's going on in this big, beautiful world and how we can help build solidarity with our brothers and sisters from all over the globe. I look forward to growing with y'all and learning from everyone. We're going to break our chains together. Ain't that right, Luden?
That's right. I'm Luden. I'm a journalism student. Sort of a jack of all trades. Into art, technology, currently learning a little bit of activism. And I'm here to learn with everybody and hope to have a blast doing it. How about you, Luden?
Thank you, Luden. And I am a disabled researcher and musician. I kind of came into activism for my parents. And we just need to work together and defeat the rich overlords who are destroying our lives and destroying the planet. We break our chains together. So,
what are we talking about? Internationalism?
Right. Each week on Professional Lapses, me, Austin, and Luden will discuss the international news that is often missed and how it affects you and others. We will have guests that are on the ground to discuss what's going on. Clip one.
Just the other day.
So I believe this is the farmers.
The liberalization of the sector was introduced. Now, we've all heard of liberalization. Ain't that right, Luden?
Yes. And on top of that, and relating to internationalism, we will also be able to discuss aspects of human geography, which is the study of human activity and how it changes the world around us. And for that, we will go to clip number 2.
Wow, you guys have it all like set up too, like like a script.
Yeah, that was actually our first episode.
Like you have it like all set up, know who when's going to who. That's pretty good. Let's continue to listen to maybe 30 more seconds. Let's hear. Oh, let me turn it up a little bit.
Public waters, and these are public lands that have been given away by Minnesota's Department of Natural Resources to Enbridge, a Canadian corporation. This is the river, and to both sides of me is Enbridge's Line 3, where they've been tearing through the forests of the north with such speed and such destruction. We want to protect our water. All of this land is the people's land. It's state land, and it's been given away by the Department of Natural Resources, along with 630 billion gallons of water.
Internationalism is how policy and issues affect the people of two or more nations. The world is infinitely complex.
I'll pause it right there. Again, it's almost like you all of you plan to say, hey, I'm gonna get my own niche, and because all of you are covering different things on this channel, which is very important. And I don't hear any like overlap. So I think I think you're doing great, and you're gonna go. This is gonna do very well. It's really just a matter of if people see you, you'll be just fine, and that's really almost what not anything. If people have the chance to just hear you, and that's the problem though we have with these platforms censoring us. If they just allow people to hear, they know which ones would be popular. They know which ones people would gravitate to. But this is the whole thing that we're fighting against. So that's the reason why I wanted to bring you on to kind of talk about your shows. We've come to maybe another 10 minutes. We'll go here because we do have another stream coming up. Today is our busiest day of this week, where we literally are not streaming. I think 2 hours out of today we're not going to be streaming.
Oh wow,
that was 2 to 3 my time, and then 30 minutes after this show. But us outside of that, we've been streaming today.
It's your
so
lunch break, I guess. Yeah.
Well, not just me, not just me, but all of us together. Like Rome has been on, JB has been on, me, Nick, and Josana will be later tonight. In about 30 minutes, they'll be coming on. So, so we went over all. Yeah, I'm tired. I'm gonna go take a break after this. But I just wanted to say what you're doing is awesome. Keep up the good work. A lot of people who have a channel already populated with some people wouldn't be like, hey, let's go start over with our own thing. So that to me is telling me that all of you are invested in doing this long term, really affecting change, because it's not about, oh, I gotta have certain many subscribers. It's about the work that you're doing, and the people will come if you do the right work. The people will come if you do the right work. So I'll give all of you kind of like last words, any shout out, maybe if you want to shout out your show, maybe if your show is going to be premiering, if you don't do a show, you can talk about any other work that you're doing. I'll start at the bottom with Z, then we'll go to Andrew, then Logan. So Z, if you want to tell people like when your show is on air and anything else you want to kind of shout out this last couple of minutes.
Yeah, I'm gonna start working on the next Revolutionary Reader episode. I'm thinking about I might go back and do some of the old ones over in the new format. Besides that, you can catch me on usually you can catch me on panels on Wednesdays at least once or twice a month, and I've kind of gotten to a thing where I've been trying to do interviews every week, and I'm trying to get more people to interview on and to talk to them, and a lot of mostly workers and stuff like that, and a lot of activists and a lot of workers. So like Andrew said, we got to interview a Starbucks worker. We got to interview Renee Johnston from the Movement for a People's Party activist, and Lee Camp and Eleanor Goldfield. So we're going to keep going with activists and keeping our ear to the ground.
Absolutely. And Andrew.
Yeah, so I mean, definitely you can catch me on panels that we have. So every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, we have panels, and these panels mostly revolve around current topics, current news, and such. And then, yeah, like I said, I'm going to try and start to consistently do my own type of show with different guests and talking about sort of news and that isn't often overlooked and isn't necessarily covered. And tomorrow, should I bring up tomorrow that we're going to have a panel show? So in honor of 420, we're going to be talking about cannabis and the many different aspects of cannabis, because I think there's so much to talk about in terms of when it comes to the war on drugs and the legalization process right now. Well, I think it often gets overlooked that it is getting legalized, but talking about how it is and is it getting legalized in an equitable way that actually gives communities that were affected mostly from the war on drugs, Black and brown communities, a fair share in the actual business itself, so that it doesn't become just another corporatized industry that is exploitative in nature. And so those are going to be some of the topics that people are going to be we're going to be talking about on the panels tomorrow for that. So definitely look out for that. And Novi also, who couldn't be here, wanted to spread the word that I believe it's Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, talking about oil fields, right? Is anybody, yeah,
I believe
specifics
it was
on
the
that?
oil crisis that she was talking about.
Oil prices.
Oil prices.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So to my understanding, there's been a lot of research that has been done on that to talk about that. So yeah, we definitely have a good few amount of things coming up this week and such. So yeah.
Absolutely. Logan.
Yeah. So the link here, the link tree there, is a link to all the places that I appear. linktr.ee/FOILG for Focused on Infinity, Logan Grendel. I'm working on a number of things. I am working on more interviews. I have another interview with astrologer and great thinker Jessica Lanyadoo. I did one with her recently. I just had Malumbo, who did that viral TikTok series, Political Spectrum Left to Right. We just had a good conversation. That one's going to be coming to PVN this week, either in whole or in sections. I have a bunch of other content I'm working on. I'm working on a book, but just go to the link tree and find, you can find everything I'm doing. And a lot of that is going to be coming to PVN. And I want to do a show specifically for PVN, but that is still in the works. So TBD.
Absolutely.
We got one step
Amira.
So you can find me on most Wednesdays on the panel for the People's Voice Network. And you can also find my writing work at my blog, which is endemictimes.com, or you can also find it on Substack. And my YouTube channel is called Endemic Times, where I'm covering a myriad of different topics. So that's where you can find me. And thank you so much, CJ, for having us on this panel. We really appreciate you giving us the opportunity to just kind of lift up what we're talking about and the different voices that we have at the People's Voice Network.
Absolutely.
And we started this stream, I think, at 100 subs, and now we're at like 107. So thank
Woo!
you all for subscribing.
wow.
And thank you, CJ, for being
Yeah,
responsible for that.
absolutely. Keep going over and subscribing. And Comrade K, and we'll end with Ludin. So Comrade K.
Hi. You can catch me on most Wednesday panels that the People's Voice Network has, along with all of these beautiful comrades underneath me and to my right and to my left, mostly under this direction. I have my own show that I do every Saturday at 6 o'clock called Red Scared, which is also the handle that you could use to find me on Twitter. You can find me on TikTok, which is where I do a lot of political content of my own with almost the exact same handle, except one less D, because TikTok just sucks like that. I know. I post more content over there that has to do more with, my personal outlooks on very specific political issues. And I also try to shout out PVN as much as I can from there. And yes, what I would like to ask is that, anyone who's watching this who hasn't already, subscribe to the People's Voice Network on YouTube and follow us on Twitter and follow everybody beneath me, because without them, the network would not be a thing.
And Ludin, he's to the side, but yeah.
Last but not least, Ludin.
Oh, thank you. You can find me at Ludin Chazo on Twitter. You could also find me on Wednesdays on panels every so often. And if you don't see me on a video, that's probably because I'm in the background doing the Batman work of the crew with the video editing and whatnot.
That's real.
So that was pretty much it.
Working as a team, that's great to hear.
Follow Ludin too.
Yes, absolutely. Follow Ludin. Do you have your name on there? Let's see.
Yes, right here. Ludin Chazo. Right
there we go.
The one guy not beneath Comrade K.
All right. So again, thank you for coming out. Probably reach out in a couple months just to do a check-in and see how many you've added since the 107, since you hit 107. So, but doing some great work. Keep up the good work. And I will say bye to everybody. So I'm gonna put all of you backstage, and thank you for
Thank you,
coming
CJ.
on PVN Populist Voice, or the People's Voice, actually now. Still PVN, but now call it the People's Voice. And thank you for coming on. Once again, talk to all of you later. And so I'm gonna be closing out here with all of you on this long stream. This one out is long, two hours and 30 minutes just about for this stream. We're gonna have a 30-minute break before RBN will be back at you with another stream. That is, I believe it's Josana and Nick that will be on for Josana's show. So check that out. Tomorrow I have, you know what? Who do I have? Did I write it down somewhere? Tomorrow is Wednesday. Oh, I have healthcare. I think it's at 6 p.m. Eastern. And then after that, we have the trauma from the police state, and that's Dr. Zunkas and Dr. Kareem joining Nick. So it's 4 of us tomorrow night. All right, so lots going on. Make sure you stay connected, like this stream, subscribe to this channel. We're doing the work for the people because we believe in the people. So I'm going to be signing off now. Let me see if I have a good video to end with. I can't just sign off normally. I need to put something up. Actually, let's go to a different one over here. So I'm going to sign off with a video. Now, just like I say always, this video, I will not be coming back after the video. So this will be the last item before the stream cuts. Let's play this one here. All right, so yeah. So Carlos had he was a guest with me and Nick and CJ show. He was a guest. He had a lot of great response. People loved him, want him back on ASAP, and I'm sure we will get him back on very soon. But I am signing off here. Like the stream, subscribe. Thank you for everybody on Twitter, on Facebook, on Twitch. I don't think this is on Rumble yet. Thank you for everybody that joined us today. And here, signing off with this video. Check you later. Would you call a chicken on a range? Would you call him free? A free range chicken? Is he free because he's able to walk around in a larger space? And I'm like, the Black community has identified making it as being able to buy stuff. Capitalists have said, hey, I can make money off of you, so let's treat the niggers a little nicer. It's all that's happened here. That's all that's happened. So just because you're able now to go to an apartment and purchase an apartment in some areas, not everywhere, or get an apartment or get a car at some places, not everywhere, right? Just because you're able to do that doesn't make you free. You're just on the range. Can you speak to that, please?
Absolutely. Yes, you're right. And being on the range means no, you're not free. It's just your yard at your prison got so big that you forget there's a prison behind you because your yard's so big. You can see mountains now. You've been transferred to like a different penitentiary where your view is better. Congratulations, but you can't leave. You still can't leave, right? So,
right.
Two things that you made me think about in bringing that up is like, yeah, at the end of the day, you're not free. And in many ways, if you look at how multiculturalism was being represented in the 70s when it was trying to figure out what the hell it was, the TV shows were different, right? The Jeffersons are about, moving on up. But they said honky on that show. They said cracker on that show. That George Jefferson was pissed off all the time.
All
right?
the time.
And he was
about white people.
About white people.
Yes.
He had a laundromat business. That's how he made it. And he was small time. And we saw racism. And I go, you know what changed that fucking conversation just in terms of the culture industry and television? The Cosby Show. Because in the Cosby Show emerged, you had a medical father and a lawyer mother. I have never come across an Black African American family
Right.
who has
like
two professional parents.
They were the Obamas before the Obamas.
Exactly. And so they were indoctrinating us into the fact that your change has arrived.
You can make it. Have you seen the Cosby Show? You can make it.
Exactly.